So yesterday I discussed about the great interest in astrology among people in ancient times and even in modern times, in spite of the fact that it doesn't seem to have any scientific basis. Nevertheless, it's continued to have an influence on people, and it's also part of the Vedas and Jyotish. So, and I discussed this relationship with karma. So now we'll discuss a little bit about what is astrology actually. So, here we see the signs there, which you're probably familiar with if you read the newspapers. They have all these things every day in the newspapers, but that's according to the sun sign. So these are actually locations in the sky. The zodiac signs are located in the sky in a certain belt. Not the whole sky, but a certain area of the sky that rotates all night. And the planets fall within that belt, and they're located by the signs, different signs. They have to be located someplace. So it is 23 degrees Gemini, or it is 2 degrees Cancer, or it's 1 degree Leo, or whatever. So we locate planets in signs. And then, based on that, where the planets are at your birth, then make predictions of your karma. So this sounds a little strange. How is it possible that planets can predict karma? Why only planets? Why not something else? So actually we could say that anything could predict karma. If we make a system and we have some limits to the systems, we refine the system a little bit, we can predict futures and what by so many different systems. And as I mentioned in China, they do have other systems also besides astrology. There was one person that developed a system of making predictions based upon how the cherry blossoms fall off the tree. But of course, how do we regulate that? Because each tree is different, and the cherry blossoms falling off at different times. How do we? It's a very difficult thing to refine and make exact and have a system which is regular. But astrology is regular because the planets are fixed and the signs are fixed. It's just they're moving in different ways at different times, in different positions. So it's a little more convenient. Anyway, we could have various methods of predicting karmas and predicting futures, etc. Another method they have in China is they throw coins. And based on that, they look up in a book and you get a prediction, which is quite accurate in many cases. So again, it's a little bit mysterious how it works, but it does work. So, of course, the idea in the Vedic system is we can predict karma, and then we have to find what to do about the karma. So then we have remedies for the karma also. Anyway, as I said, the scientists in general are a little bit skeptical of astrology because they can't figure out how planets could influence your life just simply by being born at a certain time. But within quantum physics, actually, we do have some parallels. For instance, there's Bell's theorem that says that things that are once connected are always connected. So if they just happen to meet by coincidence, then that relationship is eternal, somehow or other. How it works, we don't know. And if a butterfly flaps its wing on one side of the universe, it has an influence on the other side of the universe. We don't know what it is, it's there. And if we take one section of the universe and we analyze it, we can figure out everything about the rest of the universe. In other words, we can take one leaf in the universe, and technically we could probably predict all about the whole universe from one little leaf. So that's where quantum physics goes. This is, of course, theoretical. But there's many, many mysterious things like this in quantum physics. So somehow objects once connected are eternally connected, no matter how far they are apart. Even if they're across the universe, there's some sort of relationship with them, with the other object. How is it possible? So in that way, we can say it's not so impossible to have planets connected with your karma, etc., and with the individual, and with all individuals on Earth, actually. Another idea is synchronicity. Events happen and we interpret them, we give them meaning, even though it doesn't look like they would have meaning, like a black cat going under a ladder or things like this, omens and things like this. What does it mean? Why would it have a significance? Why would it be bad luck or whatever like that? There's no scientific reason why certain events should give bad luck or good luck or whatever. Huh? And that two events that happen together, how can they have a meaning at all? But there is something called synchronicity of events in science also. Huh? And several people have investigated that, including Carl Jung. He became interested because he was experimenting with throwing the coins in this Chinese system and getting the results. And he was very puzzled because the results he got were very accurate. So I said, how can throwing the coins produce a prediction, an accurate prediction? So then he developed the idea of synchronicity, that the moment that you ask a question and throw the coins has an equivalent in this particular book where you look up the answer like that. So there was a synchronicity of asking the question and throwing the coins, and that produced a certain result. How possible? We don't know, but he said, okay, there's things like this that happen. We don't know how it happens, but nevertheless, they got a certain meaning to them. So we don't know the laws behind it, but somehow there are things like that. There's an incidence of synchronicity. A policeman called Alan Folby got in a car crash, and he damaged his leg here, and it was bleeding, etc. And then somebody came by, and he saved his life. And the person was Alfred Smith. And then 5 years later, Alfred Smith got in a car crash, and he also damaged his knee. Same place, same bleeding. And who rescued him? The policeman. So there was, how could it happen like that? Well, one person saves the other one saves the other. They got the same injury, etc. We don't know how it's like, but somehow there's some, we give it a meaning, as we call it karma or whatever like that. Huh? So there's many strange incidences like this that may happen, and somehow we want to give them a meaning because they look like they're parallel, they have some pairing behind them. This famous example is here. I don't know if it's true. Some people it's not even true. And they give many parallels between President Kennedy and Abraham Lincoln. Both surnames are made of 7 letters. Abraham Lincoln was assassinated in the theater and his assassin hid in a warehouse. Lee Harvey Oswald fired his rifle from a warehouse and tried to hide in a theater. So you got the kind of an opposite type of thing between the two assassins or whatever like that. President Lincoln had a secretary called Kennedy, and President Kennedy had a secretary called Lincoln. So we got some kind of parallels in their life. Some people point out some extreme parallels, but I don't know if they're all true. So many things are there. Strange, coincidences in the two lives. So there's many things like that happen and that have this. So this is what we call synchronicity. We don't know how it happens, but somehow there looks like it parallels between different events that don't seem to be related at all. So anyway, that's in another field. So as far as astrology, we can think of in terms of synchronicity also. You're born at a certain time, planets are in a certain place. So it gets significance because of that. Huh? And then we need a science, or we need some rules to interpret those planets in those positions. So that's what astrology is. So we have, it's quite simple in one sense. We got 3 variables, or 3 things we're working with. 12 signs, 9 planets, and 12 houses. That's all. As simple as that. And they combine away in different ways, and then we get results. So we have to predict results based upon where the planets are, 9 planets in the 12 houses and in the 12 signs. That's all. And that's what astrology is. So, planets are quite simple. I think in school, everybody learns about planets. How many planets? Huh? 9? No, in your school, when you learn school. How many is in school? 10? Or Pluto's not a planet anymore or something? How many in 8? Is it 8? I don't know. Pluto, did they remove Pluto? It's not a planet anymore, right? Yeah, so they have a little bit different. Some of the planets are the same, but then, of course, we call the sun, the moon, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, etc. like that. But we don't include Neptune and Pluto and Uranus at all. And we have two other ones we call Rahu and Ketu. So that's a little bit different. And you can't even see those planets. They're invisible planets. So planets are one variable. Another is the zodiac signs. We have 12 zodiac signs, which maybe everyone's familiar with. And we have 12 houses as well. House is very simple, 1 to 12, that's all. You don't have to memorize anything there. So these are the planets. Similar to the signs, and of course Western astrology also, but we got these Rahu and Ketu there, which are not real planets in the normal sense because they don't have any physical substance to them at all. They're points of intersection between the angle of orbit of the moon in relation to the horizontal of the earth. That's all they are, points that rotate backwards. That's all they are. Called Rahu and Ketu. So these planets also have deities, avatars in charge of them. They have devatas also, and if you go to the Shiva temple, I think it is usually in India, you'll see, in South India, you'll see the Navagrahas, the 9 planetary deities in the corner someplace, and people will be worshiping these deities. So those are the devatas in charge of the planets. And then we have, above them, we have the avatars. This is mentioned in Parasarahora Shastra. So for each planet, there's a ruler. So for the sun, we have Ramchandra. That's very easy because Ramchandra was in the Surya Vamsa. He was in the sun dynasty. And Krishna was in the moon dynasty, so Krishna's in charge of the moon. Mars is also very easy because we have Narasimhadev, who is very violent and angry. And Mars is a violent, angry planet. Mercury, Buddha, which is a very calm planet. Venus is a little bit difficult to understand. That's Parsuram, I think because it descended from Sukracharya. Parsuram is in that family. Jupiter is ruled by Vamana. That's a little strange also because Vamana is like a huge planet and Vamana is a little dwarf. But what happened to Vamana? He expanded himself. And he covered the whole universe. So he became very big also. So maybe for that reason, expansion. Jupiter is expansion. And Saturn is ruled by Kurma. So one connection there is turtles move very slowly. And Saturn moves very slowly. Slow planet. And then we have Rahu with Varaha and Ketu with Meena. So those are the deities, avatars, like that. Okay. So we have the avatars here. I give the other. Those are the pictures of the Navagraha deities up there, and certain devatas which are also associated. Agni with the sun, Varuna with the moon, Kartikeya with Mars, Vishnu with Mercury, Sachi with Venus, Indra with Jupiter, and Brahma with Saturn. Those are conventional demigods who are related to those planets as well. So, each planet also has a gem. So these are used as remedial measures. If you got a weak planet, you strengthen it by wearing that gem or worshiping that avatar. So if we have a weak sun, then you worship Ramchandra and you wear a ruby, the red stone. If you have a weak moon, then you wear a pearl and you worship Krishna. If you have a weak Mars, then you worship Narasimhadev and wear red coral. And if you have a weak Mercury, then you wear emerald and you worship Buddha or Vishnu. If you have a weak Venus, then you wear a diamond or worship Parsuram. And you have a weak Jupiter, you can wear yellow sapphire and worship Vamana. If you have a weak Saturn, you wear blue sapphire and worship, who is it? Saturn, Kurma, the slow one. And then we have Rahu, that's a gomed, which is kind of a garnet, kind of a yellowy orange garnet. And Ketu is the cat's eye, which is kind of a yellowish stone that looks like a cat's eye like that. So these are the gems. There's trees also, or plants associated with each one, and we have the colors obviously. The red for sun, and moon white, and Mercury is green. Venus is light pastels. Jupiter is yellow. Saturn's dark blue, like that. Rahu is kind of dark, and Ketu is a little bit yellowish. So, now these planets have some general natures. So we got the good planets and the bad planets, basically. So the best one is considered to be Jupiter. This is the money planet. This is the success planet. This is Dharma planet. Expansion, success, all that. So that's considered the good planet. We know that the Sanskrit name and also Hindi is Brihaspati. And Guru. So Guru stands, of course, for religion also and things like that, wisdom. So it's a very good planet in general. And Venus is considered a good planet, but it's quite opposite. That is Sukra. And we know Sukracharya and Brihaspati were enemies. Enemies, eh? The guru of the Devatas and the gurus of the demons. So it's good in the sense that it gives lots of material things, comforts, but it's not very dharmic. And we have Mercury also, generally a good planet, good for intelligence and things like that. And Moon, if it's waxing, if it's getting bigger, the Sukla Paksha, then is considered good. And the bad ones are things like Saturn is considered the worst one, because it's very slow. So if you have a strong Saturn someplace in your chart, it slows everything down. So you work very hard, but you don't accomplish very much. So that's Saturn. Mars is also considered bad because it's the violent planet, agitation, quarrels, everything like that, particularly marriage. So if you have Mars in the marriage house, not considered very good. Everyone fights all the time. Sun is considered a malefic. Not so bad, but it's also a malefic, and if it's in a funny place in your chart, like 7th house, it can also create problems. Less than the Mars, though. And Rahu and Ketu also are considered malefic, something like Saturn and Mars. So that's their general nature. But within the chart, they actually begin to change a little bit. So the good planets can become bad, and the bad planets can become good also. So we can't just say that Saturn is completely bad or Mars is completely bad. They also become good. So they have good features and bad features. And the good planets can also become bad. So but this is a general type of understanding of the planets. So we have the planets, and then they're situated somewhere in these zodiac signs. And we have 12 signs. Now, located in these signs, they have certain strengths and certain weaknesses. They become very strong or they become very weak according to the zodiac sign they're in. And they also the planets own certain signs, and they become very nice there. Like if you own a house and live in it, you feel comfortable. If you're in a strange house, it's not so good. So they have their own house, they're very nice. And they have a special house where they're very strong, and they have a special house where they're very weak. And these are just fixed, certain signs like that. So this is what requires the memory. So this is just, you can see by the colors, who owns, the blue one is Saturn. See, it owns these two, Aquarius and Capricorn. Yellow one is Jupiter. 2 houses, Pisces and Sagittarius. The red one is Mars. It owns Aries and Scorpio. And the purple one is Venus. It owns Libra and Taurus. The green one is Mercury. It owns Gemini and Virgo. And then we get the 2 sun and moon together. A little bit of a pattern there we can see. The 2s, like that, around the zodiac. So these are the ownership. So if the Mars is in Scorpio, it becomes strong. If it's in Aries, it becomes strong. If Jupiter's in Sagittarius, it's strong. If it's in Pisces, it's strong like that. If Saturn is in Capricorn or Aquarius, it becomes strong. Own house, like that. So that's one factor there. The zodiac signs also have, they can be considered to be like a Apūrva-prīti, a universal form. And the first sign, Aries, is the top, and Pisces is the foot. And we have all the parts of the body in between. And if you get all the bad planets in one place, that affects that part of the body. So if you have, on the head part, for instance, you have Saturn and Mars and Sun, they're not very good for your head. You maybe get migraine headaches or injuries to your head or something like that, So that's another thing. The planets, the zodiac represents a Purusha in one sense, and the body parts are go in order down to the Pisces in the feet. So we have the zodiac signs, and we have houses, 12 houses, which kind of look like they coincide with the zodiac signs, but a little different, because the houses are counted separately from the zodiac signs, but they're related to them. A house indicates certain things about your life, like first house is body, second house is money, third house is brothers and sisters, fourth house is properties and house, fifth house is children, sixth house is sickness, seventh house is marriage. But it's changing all the time because the sky is going overhead like this all the time, the zodiac signs, everything is moving. So the first house is the house on the horizon, eastern horizon, rising up over the horizon. It's called the ascendant, or the lagna. That's number 1, just kind of coming on the horizon, like that. And then we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and that's what we get. So the one on the top would be the 10th house. That's the top of the sky. And the one on the eastern horizon is number 1. The one on the western horizon will be number 7, like it's going up above it, like this. Number 4 is opposite 10, like that. So whatever zodiac signs on the horizon becomes number 1. And we just number all the signs like that. So like this. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But it's next hour or so, it gradually rises above the horizon so that the 1 is no longer the 1 anymore. So the next sign becomes number 1. So it keeps changing all the time. So we need not only your birth date, we need your birth time as well in order to get this very crucial numbering of the houses from 1 onwards. So they vary in how the speed in which they rise above the horizon. And generally you can say an hour and a half, 2 hours like that. And sometimes they're less, sometimes they're more, according to the season also. So this is 7 a.m., where we have the red one on the horizon. 9 a.m., the red one's above the horizon, it becomes 12th house. And what was down there with Ketu, number 2, has become number 1. So Ketu becomes the planet in the ascendant. Here it's in the 2nd house. And we have Saturn in the 4th house. Now it's in the 3rd house. Like that. So because these houses signify certain things, someone born 2 hours later has a completely different chart. Because the good planets may be in bad houses at that time, or in good houses. Except for in the person the 2 hours before will be different. So 11 again, the green one's on the thing, and Saturn's in the 2nd house. Here was in the 3rd house. Now Saturn's in the 2nd house. And we go a few hours later, Saturn's in the ascendant. And Moon is in the 3rd house, where it was in the 4th house, like that. Like so, in that way, it's the zodiac is always going like this above the horizon, and everything is moving with it. The planets also are going upwards. And therefore, the houses are always changing. So, what are the houses? First house is the self and the body. So if you have a good, strong first house, generally your health will be very good. Got a weak first house, very bad health in general. Second house is for money and close family members. If you've got a strong house there, then you can get money easily. If you don't have a strong house, very difficult to accrue and save money. Third house is brothers and sisters and travel. Fourth house is mother and properties, house, assets. Fifth house is children and also education, lower education. Sixth house is enemies and sickness. This is a bad house. Seventh house is the marriage house. So if you got good planets there, very good. If you got Mars there, very bad. If you got Saturn there, very great delay in marriage. If you have Saturn in the 5th house, very bad for children. You get delay there also. No children maybe. 8th house is the worst house. There's lots of obstacles and accidents and things like that, secret enemies, etc. So if you have a lot of planets there, it's not very good. 9th house is a very good house. It stands for father and for dharma, religion, things like that, higher education, and foreign travels. 10th house is for your job and your boss and things like that, occupation. So if that's strong, then you have good work. 11th house is success house, gains, friendships. 12th house is not a very good house, death and losses, prison, jail, things like that. So not good. So if you get the bad planets in a particular place, a lot of bad planets in one place, that's not very good in your chart. You get continual problems in that area. So if you have, for instance, the marriage house and you have Saturn, Mars, Sun, and Rahu, it's definitely not good for your marriage. 7th house. You have 4 malefics there, very bad. Yeah? A lot of problems. So that goes for any house those planets are in. So, like that. So, that, of course, as I said, the bad planets, good planets, but then they may change also because of certain factors. So the bad planets may become good also, so they wouldn't have such bad effect as well, even if they're in the 7th house. Okay. So what do bad planets give a house? Like Mars in the 1st house, with accidents to the body, because it means violence, etc., to the body. Mars in the 4th house, accidents to mother, or perhaps your house burns down. Because 4th house is for house, and Mars is also fire. So not very good for your house. 7th house is accidents to wife or quarrels between the husband and wife, like that. We have bad houses. 6th house, sickness. 8th house, accidents. 12th house, losses. So we got a lot of planets here, not good. So if planets are in the bad houses, they also become weak. So if you have a good planet in a bad house, not very good because the planet becomes weak. So Jupiter is a good planet. It becomes weak automatically in the 6th, 8th, or 12th house. Particularly the 6th and the 8th house becomes weak. Okay? So it also weakens planets. So that's 12th house, 8th house, 6th house. Weakens your planets. So if your planets are weak, what happens? No vitality. If the sun is weak, no vitality. The moon is weak, mind is disturbed. Mars is weak, strength, muscles, no muscles. Mercury is weak, no memory, no intelligence. Venus is weak, can't get any enjoyment in life. Jupiter weak, no money. Saturn is weak, no willpower, no determination, like that. So the planets are weak, you have problems. So if they're in the 8th house, generally you get problems. So the planets will also show quite a lot of influence on your life if they're in the ascendant. Or they're with the moon, because the moon is the mind. So these 2 placements are also very important. Ascendant or with the moon. So we got a good planet in the ascendant, then it's very good. Like Jupiter. Yeah, Jupiter in the ascendant, and it's also, by other means, it's also favorable, then it's very good. Very lucky for you. But it may mean you also get big, because it's an expansion planet. So you may get fat as well. So there's the example of the moon in the ascendant. Or we have a planet with the moon. Here we have Saturn with the moon. So then that may be quite prominent. Saturn is slow planet, a little morose, loneliness, etc. So it'll affect your moon, and then you feel lonely and things like that, or rather morose type personality, whatever like that. Or you don't like people and you stay by yourself all the time, solitary. So this is the sun. It's a kshatriya planet, yeah? It likes to boss over everybody, controlling, manager. It's fiery, obviously. It's hot planet, in charge of bravery and things like that. So it's very strong, then these qualities would manifest. The negative aspects, of course, is probably a little too much show off, like that, a little bit too proud, like that. So it can become problematic also. They like to push people around and things. Moon, it's the opposite. Just like in poetry, the sun is considered not so nice because it's so hot and everything. Moon is considered very nice, very gentle, cooling, etc. So it's peaceful, soothing, protective, pale, emotional, compassionate, etc. Quite auspicious. Mercury. This Buddha, of course, means intellect. So it's in charge of intelligence, brain, nerves, communications, speech, traveling, because it's a quick planet. And Mercury in Greek mythology had little wings on its feet. I think in some countries the postal system has a Mercury with little wings on the feet or something. Or some courier service has that, I think. He got little wings on his feet and he's going across delivering the mail or whatever like that. So Mercury is in charge of travel, quickness, communications. Comedians also may have a good Mercury. Speaking, like to speak a lot. It's Mercury. Intellect, mathematicians should have a strong Mercury. Astrologers in ancient times had to calculate a lot, so they need a strong Mercury also, because they do have calculations to get the positions of the planets. Now you just use computers, so you don't care, but previously you had to do everything by hand and use mathematics to calculate the planets, so you need mathematics. So the astrologer had to have Mercury also very strong. So good for science in general, and education in general. Mars is an aggressive planet, angry planet, destructive planet, impulsive planet. It's a fighter, another Kshatriya planet. Action. Very active. And Jupiter, this is the wisdom planet. It's for dharma, generosity, happiness, expansion, religion, wealth, banks, politics, things like that. And Venus, in charge of beauty, artists, musical things, love affairs, like that. Dancing, whatever. Performing arts in general. Singing. Saturn. Morose, slow, dark, solitary. Its good thing is determination. Actually, if you have a good Saturn, and then it's good for things like meditation, concentration, determination to do things. Prabhupada's ascendant is ruled by Saturn, and he had an exalted Saturn in his 10th house, so very determined. Very serious person also, this Saturn. Okay. So, we can have the bad planets or we have the good planets. The bad planets may be in a good house and they give problems. We have the good planets in a bad house, they become problematic because the good planets become weak. So we get both problems. There's another factor, of course, besides just in the houses. That is, in the zodiac signs, they said if they're in their own house, they're quite strong. They're in another house, they're called exalted. And they're another opposite house, they're called debilitated, very weak. So that's another thing. Zodiac sign placement makes strong and weak as well. But I didn't cover that here, it's a little more complicated. So anyway, we end up with strong and weak planets, basically, in the chart, in different places in your chart. And we have good and bad houses. So that combination produces your the material for making interpretations. So the interpretations can be general in terms of your whole life. Okay, strong Saturn, strong Mars, weak this or that. The other is according to time. So we also say when the bad things are going to influence the most, and when the good things are going to come, like that. So there's a whole system for giving the timing of events. And this is called the dasa periods. So certain planets will rule certain periods of life. Venus rules for 20 years. Jupiter rules for 16 years. Like that. So each planet has a particular ruling period. And if it's a good planet and it's a long period, then you have very good results for 20 years if you have Venus in a good position. If you have Venus in a bad position, then you have to suffer for 20 years. Huh? So like that, if we have the bad planets or the weak planets or whatever, then we end up with suffering, and we get poverty, sickness, accidents, losses, affliction to family members, tension in married life, unemployment, and so many other problems. This is the bad karma, and it's indicated by the weak planets, or the good planets in weak positions, or the bad planets very strong in the wrong places. So then we end up with these results. So the astrology will make the predictions and say when the good results are coming and when the bad results are coming. So, but why do we go to the astrologer at all then? And that is because maybe we can do something about the weak planets, the malefic planets causing the suffering, etc. We got to do something about it. So, one is worship. We can worship the devata of the planet, like the Navagrahas or the devatas, or we can worship better still, we worship the avatars. So if you have bad Mars, then you worship Nrsimhadev. If you have a bad sun, you worship Ramchandra, etc. So worship is one way. Another is the gems. Then you can wear the gems for the particular weak planet. Then we also have the Navaratna ring, which got all the jewels in it to cover everything and balance everything out. Get a little bit of everything and kind of makes all the karmas kind of equal like that. It's a Navaratna ring. So you have all the 9 gems in one thing like that. There's a complication here with this, however, and that is that there's other factors involved in finding out which is the proper gem to wear, because it may have bad effects because it rules certain houses which may be bad houses. So we have to be careful of that also. So there's we have to choose very carefully, not just base it on simplistic, well, that's the weak planet, therefore use that gem, because it may have worse influence also. So anyway, we covered this already, the influence of the gems. So another thing is donations. You do charity works of different things, donations of food, etc., like that. And it may involve also the planet and the color, etc., of the planet involved like that. So for Saturn or something, then you use black things. So you donate black cows because they're black, it's a Saturn thing like that. You can, of course, do sacrifices, homas, for the devatas or the avatars also. They're weak planets or whatever. And, of course, we have mantras. You can chant mantras for the avatars, etc. So these are ways in which we can alleviate the bad effects of bad planets or strengthen the good planets that are weak or whatever like that. So this is one method of altering the effects of karma. But we know from the Bhagavatam that actually this is not so good because it doesn't really destroy the karma. It simply alters the effects to some degree. So this is condemned in the Bhagavatam as putting the elephant bathing in the river and taking off all the dirt, and then he comes out onto the land and then he puts dust all over himself again. So we can alter the karmas a little bit, then we do some more sinful activities and we get more bad karmas again. So it doesn't really solve the problem so much like that. So at best, these atonements can alter your bad karma and alleviate it and produce some good karmas by doing charity works, etc. It doesn't get rid of karma, it just changes the bad karmas into good karmas to some degree. That's all it does. So then we have another system. Let's destroy the karmas completely. So then we go beyond karma yoga, and we go into jnana yoga, ashtanga yoga, and bhakti yoga. Okay. Of course, to get to jnana yoga, you have to be sattvic. So not for everybody. But that's one method. So if you look at the chapter 4 of Bhagavad Gita, it talks about doing Jnana Yoga, and it says you can destroy your karmas, just as a forest fire destroys the wood, like that, and you burn up all your karmas. So this is basically an intellectual process in which we study Vedanta and Upanishads and meditate on not being the body and practicing a life of detachment, taking sannyas and things like that. That's part of the jnana process. Not so practical for most people. Only a few select people can do this. It's a very intellectual process also. But the result is, it burns up the karma. It's limited, of course, because it doesn't burn up your prarabdha karmas. It burns up your aprarabdha karmas. So you have to wait until you die before you get free of all your karmas and get liberated, get moksha. Another process is Astanga Yoga. So here we use a physical process, not intellect, but we use physical means, the asanas and pranayama, and this helps us to meditate, concentrate the mind. So the ultimate concentration is we stop all of the the activities of the mind completely. We stop thinking process completely. And when that happens, then we go into samadhi. This also destroys the karma. And you can get liberation through this. It's also a difficult process to do properly. To get to the stage of samadhi and liberation, you have to renounce an awful lot, or whatever, and do a lot of things. Some, maybe you are familiar with the Kumbh Mela. We find some yogis there that are doing some extreme austerities, like standing on one leg and doing this and whatever like this. So this is an attempt to control the senses and tolerate the, the weather, hot and cold, etc. like this. This is what they do in order to control the senses and the mind. But very difficult process for most people as well. But if you're successful, then you can destroy your karma and get liberation from the material world. Stop the process of birth and death. And the last process is Bhakti Yoga. So this is a little bit different from the other two processes, Astanga Yoga and Jnana Yoga, because we don't try to stop the senses and stop the mind. We engage the senses and mind in serving the Lord. Okay? So the whole process does not depend so much on stopping, but in cultivating a loving affection for the Lord. And this will also destroy all the karmas. Unlike these processes, which are very difficult to do, this acts very quickly in destroying the karma. It may not be so quick in producing the prema, but at least the karmas get destroyed quite quickly through this process. So we see that Ajamil, he didn't even do bhakti, but he chanted the name of Narayan. He destroyed all of his karmas. Like, finished. Whereas the yogi and the jnani will take lifetimes to destroy their karmas. And just chanting the name of the Lord once, Ajamil destroyed all of his karmas. Very, very powerful process. So bhakti is very powerful to destroy your karmas, etc. But that's not the goal of the devotee. His goal is to develop prema. So that, of course, we see through the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna gives many, many instructions on practicing devotion. We use our senses and we offer everything to the Lord. And we concentrate the mind on the Lord, etc. And in this way, we can accomplish this whole destruction of karma. So in other words, by the process of bhakti, then, we can actually come to a solution to all of these problems we have here of where was it here? That. All your bad karmas. But all your good karmas also get destroyed. Everything gets destroyed by the process of bhakti. So you're no longer in the material world. So this is the ultimate process then. We do bhakti, and this will, it's the solution to all the karmas without having to go through these austerities and whatnot of karma and jnana and Astanga Yoga. Okay, any question there?
When we do comparative check during marriages, so if we're saying it's so difficult or it's not so easy to change the karma, and if someone's karma according to the chart is that they won't get divorced, so regardless of whom they marry, they will get divorced. So
According to karma.
Yeah, no, according to the chart, it says there is a possibility of being divorced.
Yeah.
So then the point comes is, what's the point of looking at the chart at all?
Oh, well, one thing is that we, as I said, we still have choices in life. So you can, if you make the real bad choices, then you get a worse result. So you may have some, let's say, bad indications for marriage in your chart. Then, intelligently, then you can look for a proper match. So that would act as a preventative to prevent that. And if you don't want to do anything, ignore it all, then you probably end up with a very, very bad karma. And if you use your intelligence and astrology, maybe you can get a good match where you can kind of overcome some of the problems there. Yeah? Now, some charts are such that they give worse results, let's say worse results for marriage, and it's very difficult to cure them. Yeah? It's very, very difficult to work with because of previous activities, obviously. So, very difficult to handle those cases. Some are like borderline, and if you use your intelligence, you can avoid by proper matching, etc. Just like you have a propensity for disease. So you can actually aggravate that whole propensity in your chart by doing the wrong things, eating the wrong food, doing the wrong things, overstress, all this stuff. Then you can really have a bad disease. If you know that that's potential in your life, then you can take care and you can mitigate the results also. So we use intelligence, and then we can change the results to some degree also.
How bhakti strengthens the Atma? The mechanism, how it is strengthens the Atma?
Well, the Atma in the material world is under ignorance. We don't recognize the Supreme Lord, and we're thinking of enjoyment for ourselves. That's our ignorance. Atma is eternal, so it can't be destroyed in that sense. It's strong or weak, doesn't really matter because you can't kill it. Any Atma, no matter how ignorant it is, it's eternal, so you can't do anything to it. You can't drown it, you can't burn it up, you can't cut it in pieces, you can't do anything with it. But the Atma is in ignorance or whatever like that. So that's the main problem. So we can say that's the weakness of the jiva. So the process of bhakti is the process of strengthening the relationship with Supreme Lord. In doing that, the ignorance is destroyed. So the process isn't to destroy ignorance, which is actually the goal of jnana. Jnana means knowledge. By knowledge, we destroy ignorance. So the whole process is to destroy the knowledge, destroy the ignorance, and get liberation. The ignorance is destroyed in bhakti, but that's not the goal of bhakti, because that only produces mukti, or liberation. So the goal of bhakti is to develop that loving relationship with the Supreme Lord. So the more we practice bhakti, sadhana bhakti, the more the Atma develops attraction for the Lord. So that attraction becomes stronger and stronger. When it becomes the strongest, that is in prema, then there's no attraction for Maya, there's no ignorance at all. It's automatically removed. Right? So the whole process of bhakti is to strengthen the attraction for the Supreme Lord, that's all. So we do that through processes like hearing, chanting, remembering, sadhu sangha, etc. That will influence the Atma. It doesn't look like that because we're doing it with the external senses. But it's, as I said yesterday, spiritual process. It's coming from Krishna, actually, these processes. So when you engage your senses in doing that, we don't get material effects. The influence of the Atma. the Atma develops more attraction for the Lord through the hearing, chanting, etc. And then automatically the ignorance gets less and less and less. So it's simultaneously a process of strengthening attraction for Krishna and destroying the ignorance. It happens simultaneously.
Raji, how long the effect of these bad or good habits have on a devotee or a neophyte devotee who started with this?
Well, as we do bhakti, when we do bhakti then, they have less effect. But as Prabhupada also explains, it's like there's residual influence still there. And so we may get the pattern there, but it's not so strong. But we get a pattern anyway. And of course, if one doesn't commit aparads, then your karmas are more thoroughly destroyed. If you have aparads, not all the karmas are destroyed immediately. So there's, according to the person, it may vary also on how your karmas are getting destroyed. Yeah? But even for a person in prema, there is a pattern of karma that remains. It's not the karma itself, it's the will of the Lord at that point. Yeah? So a person is in prema, may get sick, may have an accident also. Yeah? But it's not under the law of karma at that point, it's under the Supreme Lord. But he keeps some sort of pattern there of karma as well.
We see some of the, this is talking about non-devotees who are not practicing, they've got some of the planets perfectly lined up. So even though the food he gets, all the property he does, everything is automatically coming in his way. And sometimes we see one born with a bad planet is always suffering, bad health. So to me it looks like there is no free will for that kind of a person who is not a devotee. So he's living a life which is already planned and it's already set what he's going to have, what is going to take place in his life. So then he does not have any free will, right?
Well, we have people that have very good karmas, but they waste all their money. They throw it all away. They just end up with nothing, in spite of the fact that they could have actually done something with it. So if you use your intelligence, fine, you can build upon that good karma and be very, successful. At the same time, if you're not very intelligent and you indulge in all sorts of bad habits and waste away your money, then you can also suffer in the end. So it's not so much your karma that does that, it's your choices you make in this lifetime as well. So it's a combination usually. Okay? So in spite of your good karma, you can be a fool and end up suffering. You can others waste your good karma and just do all bad things, And you could even have a short life in spite of the fact you should have a long life by the way you live your life. Bad habits, etc.
That can change, the karma can change within one's lifetime depending on how he uses it.
Yeah, well, it's not so much the karma change. We have a lifespan, but if we're foolish, then we can commit suicide, we can drink ourselves to death, we can do so many things. That's not your karma, that's your choice in this lifetime. Huh? So it's a combination. The more foolish we are, the more your karmas are predictable. The more you have wisdom and the more you're detached, and the more you have free will and choice, the more you can overcome the karmas or whatever like that.
We hear about this instruction that suffering comes by its own, and similarly happiness also comes by its own, so we should not endeavor. So how do we?
Well, that's a general statement, but of course we see that if that was so, then no one would work now. Everyone would sit there. I think there's a saying in Chanakya or somewhere that it's like a cart. A cart hasn't got one wheel, it has two wheels. So your karma is there, your endeavor is there. They go together to produce your life. So it's not just karma. Also some effort is there, and some intelligence or whatever by which you can do things. So the two things go together. It's like we have in the Bhagavad Gita also, in chapter 3 it says, everything is done by Prakriti. Huh? But how can Prakriti do everything? It's not even intelligent. And if Prakriti did everything, we wouldn't get any karma. Prakriti would get all the karma. They'll be responsible for all of our activities. But so it's a general statement to show the force of Prakriti and influence. But obviously, we do have our free will there.
Can you change karma by doing prayers?
What?
Can you change karma by doing prayers?
Yeah, as I said, it helps, but the real method of doing it, of course, is to surrender to Krishna, and all of the karmas go.
How is that very many times that Prabhupada says that for the devotees not to go to the astrologer? But the fact that I understand that he said it according to the time, circumstances, and audience.
Well, he said both things. If you look in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there he tells us about astrology, and everyone should have, the Brahmins were the astrologers, and they went to the astrologers to do this and do that, whatever like that. So he gives both ideas there.
And then the other thing I read, he said that it's better to have an umbrella when you know it's going to rain. I read also that he said that it's better to have an umbrella when you know it's going to rain.
Okay.
So can you please explain about what two things?
But he said that in relation to what? Karma? He said that in relation to?
To astrology, that if you know that this is going to happen in the future with you.
That is, preventative, in other words. We take some preventative measures. That's all. Yeah. So if you know you're going to get an accident, you try to take precautions against it or whatever like that, so you can lessen the effects. Or if you're going to get sick, you take precautions so you don't get so sick, or whatever like that. You may still get a little of sickness, but you can alleviate it to some degree and not have such a serious problem. So that's the idea. So but through astrology, you could figure out the weaknesses in your chart and then take some measures to be careful or to remedy the situation before it happens. So in that sense, it's okay. But of course, it's all material. And if we don't care about our body or anything, fine, we can just ignore the whole thing and just chant Hare Krishna. But most devotees also are affected by their body and the miseries of their body as well. So then we would want to take care of the body to some degree.
Yeah, once he's saying, he's suggesting the devotees not to go to the astrologer. Now Prabhupada is saying that it's better to take precautions when it's going to happen.
Well, I think that don't go to the astrologer. That is on the condition that one becomes too dependent on astrology. And you also may go to the bad astrologer to just make money off you. So that wouldn't be very profitable also, because they probably won't give you a good prediction even.
How does karma play a role in us coming to the process of bhakti yoga?
Nothing. Bhakti is not under karma at all. There's karma and the gunas and the karma yoga, etc., all within prakriti and the gunas. They operate in the gunas. Bhakti is beyond the gunas. So the cause also of bhakti is beyond the gunas. So the only cause of bhakti is mercy of devotees, the mercy of the Supreme Lord, which is not karma at all. So karma cannot predict who's going to be the devotee and who's going to get prema. Astrology cannot predict that at all. At best, the astrology can predict dharma. Who's a dharmic person, who's an adharmic person, who's more sattvic, who's less sattvic, like that. When you get dharmic opportunities, etc. Now, of course, bhakti and dharma kind of go along together, so we can, if you have good dharma, then you may have good bhakti also. If you have evil nature, no dharma, then obviously bhakti would not be there also. So we can kind of secondarily interpret bhakti from looking at dharma in your chart, but it's not exact also, because you could be dharmic without being a devotee. You could be a Mayavadi dharmic person as well.
So in general, it's hard to say if a person could be a devotee from their birth chart?
Yeah. Indirectly, we can say at least they're going to have some good dharma, which would be favorable for bhakti. Yeah. And of course, if the parents are devotees, then it's more likely they would be devotees then.
We read that Saturn is a good teacher. But
Yeah, it's said to represent karma, so therefore karma teaches you. It gives you all the bad results in your chart and slows everything down. We have Sadashati 7 years where you struggle and struggle, nothing happens like that, and so you have to tolerate it. So it produces toleration and whatever like that, and determination, forbearance, things like that.
You can generate astrological charts on the internet. Can we trust them, or do we have to go to a proper astrologer?
I mean, you just write your birth date and time on the internet and you get a prediction? Those are you can just do a computer also. You don't need that. You can get those automatic predictions. They're not very useful actually, because like the astrology textbooks, they'll give, Saturn in this house gives this result, and the moon in this place gives this result, second house, third house, like that, or a zodiac sign. They'll give you all the results, and then just combine all that together and give you a big long list. But not so accurate actually. And also, they probably even the dasas they'll do the same way. So. It doesn't work out too well usually, as far as I can see. The predictions are not too accurate.
So how do you recognize a good astrologer? Because it will be very hard to find a skillful.
I think experience. You have to go to several and see if the predictions come true. If they come true, fine. Then you say it's good. Of course, there are some reputed astrologers also, so the people, because they've gone and they've got good results, they become more famous as well, so that's also there.
Can these astrological charts tell you about your previous birth?
There is some methods of doing that. I don't know, but it's not very difficult to verify anything because nobody can really prove what was your previous birth. There's, what are these, in North India, there's a few people that do that, yeah? The Brigu, yeah, things like that, but how reliable, we don't know.
Maharaj, Bhaktisiddhanta says that Apūrva was the best astrologer during his time. So what made him reject that science ultimately?
Well, he was doing astrology and astronomy. More astronomy than astrology, though he published a few astrology texts also, but his main work was the astronomy part of it. I think he published the Surya Siddhanta and the Siddhanta Ceremony, I think, in Bengali, in Sanskrit texts. And he wrote a little commentary also. So that was his younger years. And then he became involved in bhakti more and more. And when he did that, then he just kind of rejected everything else completely and just went into the bhakti and did preaching work and preaching for Lord Chaitanya's mission. He became absorbed in that, so he was less interested in other things.
When twins take birth together, do they have the same destiny? Twins?
What's that?
When twins take birth together, two child from same mother, they are taking birth at the same time.
Yeah.
Do they have the same destiny?
Well, it's very similar charts. It may not be exactly the same because sometimes they're not born at the same time. They may come out a few minutes later or a half hour later even sometimes, so they may not have exactly the same chart. But they should have very similar charts in many ways. But it could never be exactly the same. And they could never come out at exactly the same time. So there may be some difference based on that also. Just because of a few seconds even may create some big difference sometimes. But often we see that the twins do have similar patterns in their lifetimes, very similar. Even if they're in different places, they go through different things in very similar ways. Sickness at the same time, travel at the same time, etc. It also happens. Another interesting thing, if you get two babies, not in the twins, born in the same hospital at the same time, it'd be interesting to see how they come out. They'll probably be very similar also, even if they're not the same family, they're different families, but born in the same hospital at the same time. Then they probably have quite similar patterns in life.
They say that all the planets reside in the lotus feet of the Lord. So they say that the Lord, in the Padukai verse, they say the lotus feet and the slippers of the Lord. All the planets reside in the slippers of the Lord. And one who worships the slippers of the Lord, they can overcome all the planetary influences. for a devotee, does Krishna change the astrological chart after you become a devotee? Does your chart change, or is it that the chart remains the same?
Well, obviously, if we're born at a certain time, that chart's always there. Your birth, you can't remove your birth date and change your birth date once you're born, like that. So in that sense, the chart remains the same. But the influence of the planets or whatever and the predictions will not be there because the karmas are destroyed by the process of bhakti. There may be a pattern, but not the same as it would be otherwise. So a pattern will remain because we do have a body and generally we follow some pattern.
The predictions, the astrological predictions from the chart for a devotee can be different. It cannot be the...
Well, we can say that a pattern will remain, but it won't have the same intensity.
Yeah. But if we do an astrological prediction based on the chart for a devotee, we cannot say that that's the same thing that's going to happen because Krishna is the one who's deciding what's going to happen.
Yeah, and he can also change if he wants to, anything for the devotee. So it said in Bhagavatam, gradually Krishna takes away all your money in order that you surrender to him. So he may do special things also, which are not even in your chart perhaps, just to help you surrender as well. So, he may take away all your good karma as well as your bad karma.
You show that presidents are the surname. The letters also make difference.
Yeah.
Like Kennedy and you were showing it in the chart.
7 letters or 7 letters.
So surname, how many letters?
I think it was 7 letters.
7.
Yeah. You go on the internet, you'll find more and more correlations between their lives. So many things. There's interesting things, but I don't know how verifiable they were, so I just left them out. Some people say it's all made up. Somebody made the whole thing up. But there are many other things that can be, synchronicity events that are there. Interesting things are also there for other persons as well.
Leela.
Oh, okay.
Like how much should one endeavor to change material arrangement once one comes to know about some instructions for astrology, like wearing stones, that how much should we try to change those materials arrangements to improve?
Well, to the extent we get disturbed in our devotional service by our physical body and our surroundings, etc., if we get some disturbance, then we may want to adjust things so it's more favorable for us. Just as I mentioned the other day, I think it was in the class about this morning, about Varnashram system. And so it's technically not absolutely necessary, but certain elements are very favorable for us to follow certain rules, like cleanliness rules or social rules, etc. So it's more convenient for bhakti, so we follow those rules, and it helps in our devotional service because we have a material body still.
Like considering we also, I don't know in the level of the Queen Kunti or that, but I remember by having some sufferings in life, one might be able to remember the Lord more often. So how to understand that?
What's that?
Just thinking of Queen Kunti, because she was, we are not in that level, I know in that level obviously, but by having some sufferings, then one should be able to
remember the Lord better.
Yeah, so how to take that?
Well, as I said, Krishna sometimes takes everything away, so you surrender more. So that's an example, for instance. So sometimes the Lord may do that. Other cases, he does the opposite. So to Dhruva, he gave everything. The Lord gave him a whole kingdom, bigger than his fathers and grandfathers. Or Ambarish had the whole kingdom, like that. So, or Yudhisthira got the whole kingdom, whole earth to rule, whatever like that. So depending on the person, the Lord may do different things, which may be favorable for them or whatever. Okay. Okay. Hare Krishna.